Willkommen bei einer neuen Episode von Markenkraft. Für alle, die von Marken fasziniert und für ihr Wohlergehen verantwortlich sind. Welcome to another English episode of Markenkraft. My name is Olaf Hartmann, and I have the great pleasure, I have to say, to speak today with Rajamannar. Raja is the Global Chief Marketing and Communication Officer of MasterCard. Under Raja's watch, the MasterCard brand has risen from $3 to $13 billion in value and is rated among the top 10 brands globally. Raja has received many prestigious industry awards. He was named Global Marketer of the Year by the World Federation of Advertisers. Forbes considers him among the world's most influential, Business Insider among the most innovative, and Adweeks among the most tech-savvy CMOs. He is in the CMO Hall of Fame and has been elected as president of the World Federation of Advertising in 2019. Yale and Harvard have each written case studies based on the works he has led at MasterCard. He himself recently published his book Quantum Marketing, which quickly turned into a bestseller and is a real treasure chest of insights about the development and the future of marketing. His prophecy: we are about to see a tectonic shift, turning many things on their head. Classical theories, strategies, and tactics, they just will not be enough. Marketers need to up their game to the next level, as Raja sees marketing currently in a crisis, and his mission is to contribute with all his experience and knowledge to help marketeers to get out. Raja and I have been in touch for a while on LinkedIn, and he's a great advocate of multisensory marketing, which he sees as an important part of the solution to challenges we are facing in an over-communicated and fully digitalized, technology-driven world. I could not agree more. In an earlier podcast, I already have talked to Uli Rehse about the amazing MasterCard sound branding. But Raja pushed many other sensory boundaries as well, dropping the name MasterCard from its logo, leveraging touch, scent, and even taste in its branding, and creating new levels of experiential marketing under the brand theme Priceless. All this we will talk about today. Buckle up for an exciting ride. Welcome, Raja. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Olaf. That was quite an impressive introduction, I must say. I feel very flattered. Thank you so very much.
Well, you produced the material for this introduction, so it's just amazing. It's like, and I could have gone on for another 5 minutes. But to warm up, I would like to ask you a quick fire round of questions. You decide if you feel exploring one of them because they trigger something to tell a little more, and otherwise just answer quick. Book or Facebook?
Book.
Beer or wine?
Neither.
Mountain man or sea lover?
Mountain.
Porsche or Tesla?
Tesla.
USP or purpose?
Purpose.
Different or distinct?
Distinct.
What was the first job that you ever got paid for in your life?
I was actually a student at the time of engineering, and I was invited by one of the language testing centers to monitor and make sure that nobody is copying. So I was like the exam inspector during the time the exam was being written, and I got all of 20 rupees at that time, which is like 50 cents. And but it was big sum in those days, and we could go and have 3 or 4 meals with that. So that was my very first paid employment, I would say.
All right. And what did you spend the money on? Did you spend it on a brand or on something unbranded?
I spent it on food on myself and my friends.
I think it was a good investment. And and if you think you're back to your first experience with the topic marketing, it's like, what was your first experience with marketing?
So that's an interesting story. I wanted to specialize in engineering. So I did chemical engineering, and I stood first in my university. I was a valedictorian, and I got 2 gold medals and all that. And I specialized within chemical engineering in a field called environmental engineering. And that's all about pollution control, climate management, and all those good things in those days. And that's what I thought I'll pursue the career. So I went to my MBA to specialize in environmental management. So I had the engineering background. I said I should have management background. Then I will go and change the world and save the world from environmental disasters and catastrophes. And in the internship between the first and second years of MBA, I was interning in a color cosmetics company at that time called Lakme in India, in Bangalore. And I was given a logistics project, and I was sitting next to my boss's cubicle. And I happened to overhear the conversation they were having. They were trying to figure out how they can push color cosmetics into the more conservative parts of India, where wearing color cosmetics like lipsticks and nail polishes and blush-ons and all
decorative cosmetics.
Decorative things were seen to be a little, good ladies or good women don't do those because they're trying to attract attention, which means your intention is not good. That was a perception in the society then. And these people were trying to struggle how to crack it. So I said, why are these guys struggling? I just took a piece of paper and I wrote with the headline, "Is it bad to look good?" And then I started putting a small visual and all that, and I took it to the boss, to my supervisor, and I said, how do you think about this? He looked at it and his jaw dropped. And he said, this is absolutely amazing. It went on to become a real campaign. It has won some awards and all that. And that actually made me feel that though I was analytical and quantitative throughout my life, maybe there is a creative side of me which I really want to excel in. And marketing seems to sort of immediately appeal to it. So when I completed my MBA, I moved into marketing as my very first job with a paint manufacturing company, which did not have a marketing department. And I was the founder flunky of the marketing department. We were a 3-people department called, and started there and ran a lot of award-winning campaigns. And from then on, 36 years, and still I'm in the field. And I enjoy it thoroughly.
Oh, it's so interesting that you the way you describe it, because my brother is an engineer as well. And I consider him to be also very creative in the angles that he sees. Yeah. And what you did there with that headline is also for experienced advertisers so powerful, because you're not telling people, you are moving them inside. You're asking a question. And that creates so much, and that's very impressive. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that story. And like back to the introduction, this looks like reading your book, which I've done twice already, listening to your talks, seeing the vast range of appraisal, the honors you received. It's like the impression that you get, you're something of a Renaissance man. It's like, yeah, it's like a little. It's almost larger than life when you look from the outside. But let me ask the question, because like you just described, there's you have many sides to your character. How did you become the man that you are today, and with your perception of life, the experience? How did that happen?
I would credit my mother for it, honestly. Mm-hmm. So, firstly, I come from a middle-income family. So I was not born into wealth, nor did I inherit any, assets and properties at all. All I inherited was my parents' blessings and their training that they invested in, in terms of to bring us up as, with good values and integrity and etc. So my mom used to say, if you want to do well in life, you should be a very good student. And if you study well, you will get a great job. If you'll get a great job, then you can afford a lot of things which you would aspire and dream about, etc. So you should be really striving to be really, a very good student. I went in headlong, and I was a very good student throughout my career, thanks to her encouragement. But on the other hand, she would also tell me that you're blessed with, or every one of us, in fact, is blessed with so many other faculties. And we should not just be a single, one-trick pony. Just don't be only an academic bookworm. Try to do other things. So I used to go and I would play cricket. I was the captain of our university's chess team. I used to play table tennis. I was in tennis. I was in theater. I was also on the radio as what we used to call them anchor, a radio anchor for the youth channel at the time. And I was the editor of my school magazine. So I used to really push myself into multiple areas. Partly I was there to, sort of follow her guidance. And also I wanted to really, I was enjoying doing all these things. And it did not have any adverse impact on my academics whatsoever. So that's why I said, this is great. So I started going in that way. And that sort of has stuck with me throughout my life. And I always try to constantly do something else and find time for doing something else. And it's been a fascinating journey for me. And I would credit my mom completely for giving me that DNA and that, early training and inputs and guidance. And
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And from what you just described, now I understand more easily why you're also so. Yeah, I would say from the outside, it's like you have this deep understanding of multisensory marketing, which we'll talk about later. But if you just, you've been busy with sound, yeah, like doing the radio presentation. You've been busy with physical exercise, and there's some very interesting studies on that our thinking is always shaped by metaphors. So the kind of activities that you exposed yourself to created many
metaphors
in your head that you can apply. Like it's a scaffold for thinking, basically. So that's
so true.
That makes a lot of sense. Great.
That's actually, I'm going to borrow that word. I love it when you say it's a scaffold for thinking.
Yeah.
And it is. It absolutely, each one is a building block. Each one adds a new dimension and a new level of either height or depth, which is fantastic. That's very well articulated.
Yeah, it's like when you talk to people that speak several languages. Yeah, they you use the same word, but you also have a different image in your head. Like when you say door or la porte or die Tür, every time you see something different. Yeah, so each language adds another. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So then you went on to create a lot of success early on, and it went step by step. And looking back, we have a saying in Germany that the neighbors only see the flowers, never the spade. So if you look at your development there, what was the biggest challenge that you faced? Were there really difficult moments where you said okay, this is really a challenge now? And
yeah, if I look at my career throughout, the biggest challenge is not to simply have brilliant thoughts and concepts and ideas, but how do you make other people around you inspired by those? You might be passionate about something, but the other person might have a completely different point of view. And the key thing is, how do you get your point of view across to him or her? And how do you get their emotional buy-in? How do you get their support? Otherwise, most of the times what happens is, any idea, any concept, any strategy, it just gets killed or suboptimized just because you have not been able to rally the support around, whether it is from your peers or from your partners, call it whatever. I think that's one big challenge. The second challenge, which is also a fantastic opportunity as I see it, is the world is changing so dramatically, so rapidly, be it on technology, be it on political landscape, be it on social landscape, be it on any single area you take, it's changing dramatically. And if you sit and don't do anything and wake up after a day, the world has gone by significantly. The key thing is, how do you stay on top of this, of everything that's happening, get your head around it, find the insights. It's not just about gobbling up information. It's about making sense out of it, getting the insights, connecting the dots, and then taking action on those if necessary or appropriately.
Yeah,
that's a huge challenge, I would say, is the second one.
Definitely. And what you described first, the buy-in, the emotional buy-in, did you encounter a challenge where you first failed and then later overcome? You made the experience that you were excited about something, but then you couldn't make everybody to move with you? What was the situation?
Oh yeah, that has been the story of my life.
Really?
It's not like a bed of roses where I come up with something and people say, yeah, that's a great idea, let's go and do it. Yeah. Sometimes it is my own team that I have to convince.
Sometimes and what are your techniques there? What I'm looking for is when you overcome that challenge, there's a lesson in there. It's what is your method basically to rally the troops?
So multiple, I would say, methods. The first method is try to co-opt people into the creation itself. So you co-create, as opposed to you say, ta-da, here is my concept, now look at it. Instead you say, hey, here is a problem we have. Can we try to solve it together? Do you have any ideas? Now, when you ask them to think about a solution, they will realize how tough the problem is and how difficult it is to come up with a solution. And when they are at a dead end, or if they have got some basic idea, or you have some basic idea, they build upon it, etc. By the end of the process, it becomes our process. It becomes our solution, as opposed to me having got to sell that concept to somebody else. So this is the first one. So co-creation. The second thing is, in some cases, people are not just creative, nor are they interested to get involved in these co-creation activities. If I go, for example, to my CFO and say, let's co-create an advertising campaign, it's not going to work, right? Or a new product design or whatever. In these kind of cases, what the important thing is, build a relationship. Build a relationship, a trusting relationship, where you have to earn your credibility. And to earn the credibility, you have to really make sure that the other person sees your world from their lens as well as for what it is. So, for example, if I have a great concept, I don't go with the concept and say, hey, here it is. What do you think about it? And I need $100 million to fund this idea. On the other hand, what I try to do is first look at all the past things that we have done, prove quantitatively, because you have to understand a CFO is very quantitative. Mm-hmm. You need to speak the language of finance and numbers. Go with the ROI, the return on investment, and say, hey, good news, we have run this campaign, or we have run this particular new promotion, or we have invested this in some marketing infrastructure. This is how the payoff is, on the one hand. And whether it is good or bad, be transparent. If it is bad, if the assumptions or hypotheses have been not validated, or we have not got the results that we thought we would expect, be transparent. There is nothing to hide, because this is not something which you should be scared about and say, how do I dress it up and give it a packaging? No, because we're in it all together and say, hey, we have done this.
So you either succeed or you learn. Yeah. So exactly. Both ways you win. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you have to really show it to people. Okay. So that's what will earn you the trusted relationship.
Yeah.
And the third one I would say always is make sure that you keep people involved through the process, not only at the end stage. Communication is most important. Mm-hmm. You have to let people know that this is what is happening. These are the issues we are having. These are the exciting opportunities we are having. This is what we are trying to do. This is what competition is trying to do. When you are on top of your job and deeply involved, you sometimes tend to get buried in your own world. The other people are not as involved as you are. Mm-hmm. So when you go and tell them something, if they don't understand the context the way you are experiencing, they won't get the concept the way you want it to be perceived. So you really have to work the system extremely strongly, consistently, and with credibility. That's the way you have to succeed.
Excellent. So these three key takeaways is like a playbook for the marketeer, which we talk about later also, not later, well, actually we can go there, because you basically say that marketing and the marketeers in that case are in a crisis. What do you mean by that? Why do you consider marketing to be in a crisis?
See, in the days when I started marketing, my marketing career, we used to learn from Philip Kotler's framework of the 4 P's of marketing: the product, price, place, and promotion. Now, what happened is, as marketing started evolving over the decades, with the advent of data and internet in mid-1990s, with the launch of the internet, marketing has changed pretty dramatically. Most of the traditional marketers have been very right-brained. They are creative, they're innovative, they're intuitive, they have a judgment, they have a gut feel, they understand aesthetics, they understand design. It's that kind of a thing, and psychology, sociology, anthropology, and so on. That was the classical marketer. But particularly after internet has become really significant, marketers needed to understand technology, digital. Marketers needed to understand data. Now, unfortunately, many of the marketers were not either tech savvy or quantitative, with the result of which they started losing ground. And the entire marketing agenda is now being set, literally, I would say, by the media companies, by the social media companies from Silicon Valley and so on, because they are tech whiz kids. They are wizards in technology and they are wizards in data, and marketers have been lagging behind. Now, in that change scenario, and that got aggravated further with the advent of mobile and with the advent of the social media platforms evolution, with Facebook scaling in 2007, iPhone launching in 2007, these have changed the landscape completely. So marketing till mid-1990s is completely different than marketing till today and yesterday. Marketers have not evolved, as a result of which multiple things have started happening. CEOs have started losing confidence in the marketing departments and in their chief marketing officers or CMOs.
And that's connected with what you just described, because they couldn't speak the language.
Exactly right. Right. And what happens is some studies have shown, the results were like 70% of the CEOs who were interviewed in various surveys have said they have zero or very low confidence in their marketing teams to drive growth for the business. Now, that is a disaster. So number one. Number two, as a result of which, the 4 P's of marketing have been split up and given to different departments to handle. So product today is not handled by marketing in many companies. There is a chief product officer. Pricing is not handled by marketing. It's handled by finance or sales or product or somebody else. Distribution and logistics is no longer handled by marketing. There are specialized departments specifically for that. So what used to be 4 P's is now barely 1 P, which is promotional aspects, which is advertising. You do market research, you do sponsorships, and it's become very unidimensional in that sense. The third problem is many CMO roles are being eliminated. Many companies, and these are not some obscure industrial companies which don't even have a marketing department of any kind, but I'm talking about blue chip companies like a Johnson & Johnson, for example, has done away with the role of a CMO altogether. And many companies are replacing the role of CMOs with the new roles called Chief Growth Officer, Chief Revenue Officer, Chief Customer Officer. Now, if you have a chief, all these other kinds of chief growth, customer, or revenue officers coming in, what will marketing do? They become a little bit like a creative outlier. It's a creative shop. That is why I say the combination of all this is that marketing is an existential crisis. And that's a sad state of affairs, but that's really true. And also, if you're trying to attract new talent into marketing, the best students don't want to come to marketing. They want to go either to Silicon Valley and join a startup or start their own company, or they want to join an investment bank and earn a lot of money, or they want to go to consulting and do a different kind of a career altogether. The top students no longer want to go to marketing, and that's a problem. And a research study that was done by ANA, which is the Association of National Advertisers in the USA, they went to various colleges and interviewed students saying that, hey, what do you think about marketing? Unfortunately, marketing is rated very low as a desirable area, even below accounting and nursing. During the days when I graduated, marketing was the number one. It was the function which was glamorous. It had creativity. It had tangible stuff. You could travel. You could go to all these fancy events. You could be really cerebral, either on the analytical side or on the creative side. You had fun. And what you're creating would take life in the market right in front of your eyes. That was very heady. It was the number one function. But today, it is not. And that sort of saddens me. And one of the reasons why I want to do stuff is to bring back that glory and gravitas of marketing and inspire the future generations and enable the current generations of marketers to really do amazing marketing, because it's an amazing function.
That's what I understood from reading and listening to you. You said like marketing is not a department, or brand is not a department. It's basically the whole company. It's the overall process. Like you just described, if you have no influence to key basically signaling points for the brand, then how can you create like the German Gestalt, the word Gestalt from Gestalt psychology? In the end, Marke is Gestalt, and you need to control all elements that create this overall impression. And like you said, but what I heard from you now is that the path you see is to bring back that relevance, is like to connect what you do in marketing with real business effects, and that brings us to measurement.
Correct.
And like the actual outcome in countable terms.
Absolutely,
that makes a lot of sense. I think our podcast could be about 4.5 hours if we cover all the topics. Therefore, I would like to hone in on something that I found that you write about in your book is the new paradigm of marketing and the different stages. I think this makes a lot of sense to explain your point of view there, what the next paradigm shift is and what this means for the future of marketing. So, but you're great in storytelling where it comes from. So please spend a couple remarks on that as well.
Absolutely happy to. So if you look at marketing, it's not a new craft. Marketing was being practiced for thousands of years, and there is evidence of it found in various archaeological ruins. And it has been evolving ever since. The first paradigm of marketing lasted the longest, where the belief was that if you create a great product, give it a wonderful packaging, price it appropriately, and make it available easily to buy from anywhere, your product will be the winner. Because at the end of the day, aren't consumers logical in their thinking and rational in their making their purchase decisions? This was called paradigm number one, which is all about product is the hero, product is the center of everything. It's a product-centric marketing.
And the function of brand at that stage was like to create trust in the product quality, basically the functional quality of the product.
Absolutely. It was all about the functional aspects of the product, the performance of the product, and so on. But then marketers have discovered that there is something very different than their hypothesis, which is that people don't think logically. They're very illogical. And people don't act rationally. They act irrationally. They are full of feelings and emotions, which is what will make them take the decisions that they do. And therefore, going by the product approach, which is logical, linear, is not going to work. That was the second paradigm, which is all about how do you arouse emotions and feelings in people through your brand. Give an emotional wrapper to the product. And how do you then connect with the consumers? In order to raise these emotions, you need to tell stories. So two media have really enabled marketers to tell the stories very effectively. One was radio, the other one was television. The advent of these two phenomenal technologies changed marketing very effectively into that second paradigm of emotional marketing. Then, in the middle of 1990s, internet was launched. Suddenly, you had a capability to reach anyone. You didn't have to rely on snail mail. You could just, and it was very cheap. It was almost free in many cases. You could reach consumers it was a different thing. So digital marketing was born. And also data analytics entered the field of marketing. Till then, data analytics used to not be really much in marketing at all. It was not deployed adequately. But now, when data analytics came about and internet came about, marketing moved to the next dimension. That was the quantitative beginning of marketing. So, and its technology started impacting marketing. That was the third paradigm. Then in 2007, Apple launched iPhone. So mobile devices became ubiquitous, smartphones and all, they have become really ubiquitous. So customers became always on. You could reach them contextually where they are in a particular physical location and so on. And the second one was the scaling of Facebook. That was the birth in a big way of social media platforms. Between social medias and the mobile devices, our lives have completely transformed, and marketing entered its fourth paradigm with mobile marketing, location-based marketing, social media marketing, influencer marketing. All these new kinds of things started happening. Now, each time, if you see, the paradigm shift from 1 to 2 was driven by 2 technologies, 2 to 3 by 2, 3 to 4, third paradigm to fourth paradigm by 2 more technologies. Now, we are at the verge of witnessing 24 technologies.
At the same time.
At the same time. And these 24 technologies, each one is incredibly powerful. Artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality. And then you have got all this metaverse and mixed reality, extended reality, and all those good things. Then you got holographic projections. You got autonomous driving vehicles. You got 3D printing. You got 5G telecommunications. You got drones for logistics. You have got blockchains. You got wearables, smart speakers, Internet of Things. The list keeps going on, and each one of these is mind-boggling. by itself. When you combine the power of these, the confluence of these 24 technologies will simply create an unprecedented level of disruption in our world. And marketing is not going to be the same at all. Now, you can, as a marketer, shudder to say, my God, this is such a daunting change. How do I deal with it? And get paralyzed. Or you could actually look at it the other way around. My God, what a phenomenal opportunity it is when technology comes in a big way, when data analytics comes in a big way. The competing field becomes very level, which means a tiny player has the access to the same affordable technology and the same data analytics, which are highly affordable today, as are available to a large company. So the small companies and the large companies are on the same playing field, and the field which then differentiates one company from another is marketing. So this is the golden moment of opportunity and the most inspiring time to be in marketing.
Wow. And if you look at then that's a technological view, and then you look in the world, and then we have the VUCA world, which is around. Yeah, it's like that has also changed. Before it was stable and relative, like solid blocks of political blocks, but also market share blocks and certain segmented markets which were very large. And now we have like everything is volatile, and if it's good or bad, it's very ambiguous and complex. And what role do you see there for brands in this world? Like if you look at the way, like you just described, if you think of just the invention of the letterpress, how much it changed, like in Europe, for example, like the religious revolution against the Catholic Church was not possible without the printing press. Then the radio has changed politically also a lot. Like like in my country, the radio was a tool of power. It doesn't make radio bad, but it was really misused, like to manipulate people to believe in a certain view of the world. What do you see there, like in the role of marketing and in the role of brands in this world?
So I think there is going to be a profound shift in the role marketing will play. Marketing will not only be a force for growth for their companies and for their brands, but marketing will also be a force for the good. It's very important. When I say force for the good, it's force for the societal good. Marketing is probably the one rare function which has got amazing storytelling capabilities. They got amazing network and amazing resources. They know how to change culture in the most effective way. They say Hollywood, with the movies basically on the one level, and marketing are the two areas which are actually the biggest cultural change drivers in the world. The point is, marketing will have to play a bigger role. On the one hand, from a company's growth point of view, if you look at it, there is going to be such a profound amount of product proliferation. How do consumers choose one product versus other product? And one of the biggest drivers for this is going to be creativity, innovation, and all these old things that we used to think about, they'll come right to the fore, but leveraging new technologies and leveraging the power of data.
Can I just
Sure.
do a segue there, because that's very interesting. It's so basically the value creation is moved away from the functional value of an object to also the meaning of the object and the role it plays in people's lives. So it's basically a design-driven innovation and value creation, which could also be an answer to the problems that we have environmentally. Because if we continue to grow on a material way, like use more material, create like bigger things, more things, then we're going to have a problem. But if we create more value with the same amount of things, suddenly that could be a growth path without having to use up more resources.
You're spot on. Let me connect this, exactly what you said, back to the point I was making, which is consumers have now become much more socially conscious. If the technology and data are democratizing the field, and every product quality is almost the same, every product functionality is almost the same, the differentiating factors will be something different, which is, on the one hand, social good. People are looking for brands to make a difference. 87% of all consumers who are interviewed have stated that they would actually buy a product, everything else being equal, that is purpose-driven, that does good for the society, that cares about the society. And many people, particularly from the Gen Z, the millennial population, have said they're even willing to pay a little bit of a premium for products which are socially conscious. There are a lot of Gen Zs, for example, who say they will never buy a product that is not environmentally friendly. They want to buy only environmental friendly products, etc. So if you have to build trust and relationship and preference as a brand to the consumers, you're not just about tapping to their personal emotions only, but you have to enable social good at a broader scale, whether it is protection of environment. Like at MasterCard, for example, we do. Environmental related, we have launched something called Priceless Planet, where we are planting 100 million trees, and we have created cards around, we call it Priceless Planet cards, where the profits we make, part of them will actually go for environmental safety and environmental protection, climate change, and all that stuff. We have, for example, also created a wildlife impact card. So the wildlife impact is all about essentially protecting the wildlife and restoring the habitat of the wild animals. We have partnered with Stand Up to Cancer Foundation, and we are actually enabling this organization to drive discovery of new drugs for the cure of cancer. And they have already discovered 7 drugs till this point in time, which have been approved by FDA. That's a huge thing. We are partnering with the World Food Program to feed poor children. We have already given 100 million meals, I believe. And it's going on. So the point is, it's not just sufficient to tell consumers, oh, what a great product I have, and I'm just the right one for you. They say, no, I expect you to be a great product, but you also have to be good for the society. You have to be societally responsible. It is not just political correctness. It has to be much, much bigger. One small example also I will give. We have launched a card called True Name Card. This is meant for specifically solving the problems which were being faced by people from the transgender community. Now, normally, many people more in the conservative world, so to speak, would not want to touch a topic like this. Now, one of our agency employees is a transgender. And when we are hearing to the problems that this individual was facing when giving the card for making a payment, they get dirty looks from the shopkeeper. They're questioned, is this you?
Are you a woman or a man? Yeah.
They sort of get into all kinds of harassment in some ways, either explicit or implied in some sense. And in some cases, they're even denied services. So we said, we need to solve this problem because the name on the card does not match with the looks of the person. So we said, okay, what would you like to be called? Let's put that name on the card. At one level, it is such a simple solution. But then we had to take care of some legal aspects and all because government requirements and some countries, they say your legal name has to be printed on the card. But nowhere it says your legal name has to be printed on the front of the card in a big embossed font. So we moved it to the back and we put the embossing of the real name or the true name that the individual would want to be called by. We launched this card in the United States and now extended to 32 countries across Europe.
I think that's amazing. That's a very good example. But I must, one thing that I see here in Europe, which is happening, that what you're doing there, you also enhance the functional value of the service that you supply. You do good. You really do good for many people. So it's a social cause, to contribute to the acceptance of different sexual lifestyles, and at the same time, but you do it with your product. And I have sometimes the impression that people seem to forget that the first thing that people buy is the function of the product, and they only go into purpose marketing and talk about purpose here, purpose there. But you have to do your homework first. The functional value of the brand has to be there, and then, like you described, on top you can put a purpose. And if it's connected even with what you deliver as a function, fantastic. I mean, that's the key to find, and I think you've done this very well.
And in fact, thank you. In fact, I think one of the key things is purpose is not something which is for political correctness or the fashion statement that you're making. Purpose is truly, it has to be a purpose, and you have to embed that purpose into everything that you do as a company.
Okay, so to summarize that, like that's where you see the function of marketing in the future is also in first of all make a measurable contribution to business growth and create tangible results, and not the fluffy, like we create some nice pictures and all that. So it needs to be integrated in the whole value creation process and organization of the company. And the second thing is marketing has the job to be done is also to create a frame which creates a competitive advantage. And like you just said, like this purpose frame is very powerful when it's believable and authentic. And I had one more thought which I just forgot. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so once we created that, like, because then we come to the multisensory part and the part how to transmit it, how to make it tangible, and you've done many ways, and that's what I would like to explore. But I would like to make a small detour how you got there, because you said that the science behind marketing plays an important role for what you do and how you informed your actions and all that. It's like how did you get in touch, like science, what you're talking about, behavioral economics, perception psychology, neuromarketing, all these things. How did you get in touch with that, and what role does it play for the marketing of MasterCard?
Firstly, this has been a journey, right? I have taken one of my electives. It's not a specialization, but one of the subjects I did when I was doing my MBA was psychology. And I was fascinated by that topic. And I started seeing clear applications in terms of how you can be more effective and relevant and authentic in the marketing activities by leveraging psychology or psychology principles and concepts. I got a little bit of sociology and anthropology, and etc. And somewhere down the line, it all begins with either somebody is coming and telling you about a new product concept or a new scientific concept that they have got, or some article I read or whatever that I read about neuromarketing. And I said, wow, this is pretty fascinating. How do they do it? And so neuromarketing is where you are literally wiring the brain in some ways, like an EEG, electroencephalogram. And then you try to see, when you give a stimulus to the consumer, which part of their brain goes up. And the mind has been mapped reasonably okayish, where, this is the emotional part of your brain. This is the sensor, the smell. This part of the brain processes smell. This part of the brain processes sound, and so on. You get the idea. And many shows, from simple ad concepts, when you play on this, the extent of predictability of the results goes up dramatically. So that's something fascinating. I started diving deeper and deeper. So about 4 or 5 years back now, almost, I started looking at, suddenly it was an epiphany for me. I said, look, typically, most of the people are blessed with 5 senses. What is a sense? A sense is like a sensor, right? It's basically, you have got ears, which are the audio sensors. And then you have got eyes, which are the video sensors, smell, nose. So you got 5 senses, which are absorbing information of different types. They go into your brain. The brain processes them. It creates emotions or feelings or thoughts or whatever, and then they drive your actions. As marketers, we have been focusing predominantly on the visual sense. And audio sense was secondary, more as a background or something to make it a little bit more interesting and engaging, but very suboptimal. And there was no usage of smell or touch or taste. So we said we really need to change this. And we should, if people are being overloaded by so much of information coming through the visual medium, you want to take advantage of the other senses to connect with the consumer, communicate your story, impress upon them that you are the right brand for them.
And can I make one remark? Because as a marketeer, what other channels would there be to create some kind of memory structure which represents the brain in the head of your target group if you don't go through the senses? So what I always say is, like, there's no choice. You cannot not do multisensory marketing, because even if you decide not to think about it, you nevertheless, you send signals. Yeah, you send signals. You just don't control them.
No questions about it. You're absolutely right. So we said we'll adopt all the 5 senses. So first we looked at our visual. And we said, how are we communicating visually? How do we simplify and declutter our visuals? How do you optimize our visuals on various media? Like, for example, the color of the logo, the colors of our logo were yellow and red. And they were not optimized either for appeal in the brain, in the mind, nor were they optimized for the digital screens. So we played around with that, and we changed our logo while maintaining continuity with the past, which was very critical. We have created a completely new logo, and we even dropped the name MasterCard from our logo.
That was something. Yeah, wasn't that a big discussion? It's like, we're going to dropping our name. Well, how is that going to happen? It's like, what about the new clients that have never heard our name? How are they going to learn who we are?
The key thing is, interesting thing is, people, when you look at the word MasterCard, that's not how they're recognizing our brand. They're recognizing by the interlocking circles in red and yellow, the overlapping circles. People absorb more data through their intuitive parts of the brain, the system one thinking of the brain, as opposed to the logical, rational, analytical part of the brain. And when you have symbols that you give, symbols are better and quickly grasped and remembered compared to words. Like, we say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And that's exactly what it is.
One study I recently read, it was like that 72 hours after seeing a word or a representation as a symbol of the word, 72 hours later, people remembered 10% of the time the word, and over 65% of the time the symbol. Yeah, that shows the power that you just described.
Exactly. So we'd have to really optimize the visual elements by which you want to connect with the consumers. So that was the whole exercise we did. Then we went into the sound. I still remember the jingles that I heard as a child. Till now, I remember them very strongly, and I can recite those jingles. And we said, this is something which we have to tap in. Advertisers have been using jingles forever. But jingle is very unidimensional. In a visual context, there is so much of data available amongst marketers that they know how to create the logo design and how to optimize and so on. But for sound, there is hardly any research available. So that's when, in fact, we partnered with Uli and his company, and then we actually came up with some amazing architecture for our brand. It's a 10-layer sonic architecture. And we have released so far only 3 layers. And the 4th one is just happening as we speak. So each one of these layers starts with a melody. And then there is a sonic signature. Then there is a acceptance sound. Now, if you look at the melody has to be pleasant. Obviously, it's a 30-second melody. It features in every one of our ads. So that's how you create the association. But it has to be memorable. Otherwise, it will not be remembered. It has to be simple enough that people should be able to hum. So when people can hum a melody, its stickiness in the memory is far higher than when people cannot hum it. Mm-hmm. Then it has to be very, very neutral, which means it should not dominate a situation, but it should be subordinate to a situation. It should be subordinate to a message. It has to be adaptable. Whichever context you are in, whether you're in a football match or in a romantic evening dinner setting, the brand has to feel equally at home. It has to be versatile, whether you're playing the sound in Dubai or in Berlin or in Colombia, wherever you're playing, it has to be feeling native and authentic there. So we work, God knows, with all kinds of specialists, starting from the musicologists, musicians, neurologists, artists, studios, and we came up with our entire sonic brand, and we launched it, and it has now been rated as the world's #1 audio brand for 2 years in a row. Then we went to the other 3 senses.
Before we move out to the other 3 senses, just can I put in one question to the beginning of our conversation? Now you've developed this and you've come up with this solution. Now, how did you measure the effect, and what were the goals exactly? Like because each channel, colors the message and can achieve certain things, and one sense is stronger in one direction than the other. What were your goals for the sound identity, and how did you measure them?
So for the sound identity, there were multiple measures. The first is my sound should be played in as many places as possible. So we came up with a number that our sound should be played at 5 million devices, which are in the various various shops. So when you're paying with your MasterCard, when the transaction goes through successfully, you want to be able to hear that sound. The first level is awareness. The second level is association with MasterCard. The third one is unique attribution to MasterCard. So that's a 3-layer strategy that we had. We were in level number 1, which is we want to get our product, our sound in as many places as possible. And our goal was 5 million. And surprise, surprise, we actually have crossed 160 million. So 160 million points of interaction around the world already play a MasterCard logo.
So that's basically the media value. If you calculate that in media value, if you would have had to buy a radio time, just to be present in all this, you can calculate a certain value to that.
Yeah, and more importantly, even if it is present, what is it doing? There is an increased level of consumer satisfaction because consumer when the card is used.
That was in that direction. My question was going. It's like, how did you measure, for example, increase of consumer satisfaction? Did you use neuromarketing techniques for that, or surveys, or like could you quantify it? Both.
Both. So neuromarketing was giving them. Now sometimes what happens is consumers cannot express. But if you plug them into the EEG, so to speak, you know which parts of the brain are firing up. And then there is fun, for example, if you keep repeatedly observing which part of the brain gives them the sense of completion, happiness, peace of mind, whatever, when they express those kind of emotions.
What are the patterns, basically?
Correct. And when we were playing that sound, that was what it was replicating on the one hand. And on the other hand, when we were asking consumers through surveys, and they say that, look, always when we finish the transaction, there is a little bit of a tension, whether my card transaction has gone through or not, whether my card was accepted or my transaction was declined. There is a little bit of an anxiety around that. The moment they hear the sound, my card has gone through easily.
It's like the slot machine. That sound of the slot machine. It's happening. Yeah,
exactly. And it might be very minor and may appear trivial, but it is anything but. It's profoundly compelling to the consumers. So those are the kind of things that we have done. Plus, finally, we also have to say the business results. It's not just about people feeling good. Is it changing behavior in our favor? It is. It's clearly doing it. So there is
in the sense that they, for example, for you, it's important that they choose your card. They have the American Express and the MasterCard, and they pick out the MasterCard from their wallet more often than the American Express. That would be a way. Like, could you the frequency of usage, or how did you make that tangible?
So we measure something called share of wallet.
Share of wallet.
So if you are doing 10 transactions, how many are MasterCard transactions and how many are competitors' transactions? And we see, is there any credible increase in the number of transactions? And if so, at what kind of categories? Is the transaction volume increasing? And is it genuinely attributable to the sound at all? Or what percentage of it is attributable to the sound? So those attribution models become very, very critical. And we have deployed some of the most cutting edge models. We have developed proprietary as well as we have used third-party models to measure these. So we do that like crazy. And the good thing is qualitatively, quantitatively, neurologically, it works. And it is working.
Great. Well, thank you for explaining that. That's really good. And that gives you leverage with the CFO. Look, I spend much on the sound branding, but it does deliver. Great.
That's so true.
So let's look at the other senses, like scent, for example. Like, how did you leverage scent?
So scent, what we did is we have looked at the 5 senses, and the sense of scent is the one which is closest to the center of memory in the brain. So if we look at the structure of the brain, the center on the point in the brain which is connected to scent is right next to the point which actually are the part of the brain which is holding memories. So creating memories or retrieving memories is the best with scent. So we said, how do we launch? How do we get scent?
And what's interesting is that our scent cells in our nose are actually brain cells. It's the only place where our brain actually encounters the world directly, and that is super powerful. And Marcel Proust wrote his great novel about just this, what you just described, how deep memories can be retrieved by just this one scent of smell or scent from the tea that where he eats his madeleine, and then 1,300 pages later he's finished with describing what he remembers.
Exactly, that's so true, right? So we had a challenge, saying, how do we get our scent out in front of consumers? So we created 2 fragrances. One is the fragrance called Passion. The second one is called Optimism. The Passion is red color. Optimism is yellow color. Mm-hmm. These perfumes have been created by 2 women in an otherwise male-dominated perfumery industry. These are environmentally responsible. The sourcing of these materials is very environmentally responsible and sustainable. And the fragrances themselves are fantastic. We tested them quite a bit before we went for these particular fragrances. And what we are now doing is they're available, and we launched it as a consumer product. And you can buy it. And for example, if you go to any MasterCard office, you go to MasterCard experience centers, you go to MasterCard events, this fragrance is in the air. So
right, like hotel, like signature hotel scents. Like you basically have the MasterCard signature scent that in any location that is branded MasterCard, you will have the scent environment. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Makes
on the one hand.
Yeah, great.
And on the other hand, we also have got the real fragrance itself.
And does it sell well? Because I was wondering, who wants to spray themselves with a credit card? Yeah, but
it's not credit card. That's the beauty.
That's it.
We don't call it MasterCard. No. We call it priceless.
Yeah.
The fragrance is called priceless. And good thing is, when we showed it to various departmental stores, duty-free stores, etc., there is a tremendous positive response. And right now, for example, one of the top departmental stores in Italy, in Milano, they called Renishanti, they have actually stocked it pre-Christmas. They don't normally give you space unless they are very convinced that you're going to do well. Yeah. And so we launched that in Milano. It's right now there. And the initial feedback is fantastic. And now we have got a different problem. How do we make sure that we keep the stocks and distribute them around the world? Because that's not our core competency. So we're partnering with some third-party companies to help us with the logistics and all that stuff.
Who in the fragrance industry would have ever thought that MasterCard could become a competitor? That's similar. That's similar to the financial industry. Like if you would have told them in the 90s, Apple one day might enter your industry, and you see how everything becomes very fluid. Yeah, and that connects to the beginning of our conversation, and it's all about meaning. If you are creating meaning, and the people recognize the meaning, can identify with the meaning, then suddenly you have a market. That's
exactly right. That's exactly it.
That's really cool.
Right. And likewise, one quick thing, if I can say, is for the sense of taste. We didn't want to create, obviously, edible credit cards or edible payment cards. But what we did is we started creating restaurants. So as recently as 3 weeks back, we launched a fine dining restaurant in Mexico City. 8 weeks before that, we launched a fine dining restaurant in Sao Paulo in Brazil. So we are now going to launch restaurants around the world. These are fine dining restaurants, which are open only to MasterCard card members. Right. And we give priceless experiences out there. And the name of the restaurant is Priceless.
That's the name, that brand theme. How old is the brand theme? When was it launched?
It will be 25 years next year.
Yeah,
2022, It will be 25 years.
And that in a time where brands change their slogans like every 2-3 years, and then wonder where the efficiency goes. It's like it's a very good example. It's amazing. So basically, that's your flagship store of the otherwise intangible concept of priceless. Yes, it's a walk-in environment where you can experience the offer that you make with that claim.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And then the last sense that you recently employed was the sense of touch. Tell us about that. Like, how did you do that?
So touch was something very fascinating to us. So we started looking at touch, and the feeling we had was, or I had was, that we should definitely get into this space in a relevant way again. I grew up, when I was growing up, my grandmother used to live with us, and she was blind. She went blind. So as a kid, I had to escort her to go from her room to the living room, or from living room to the bathroom, or to the kitchen. I had to hold her, show her where her seat is. It was all pretty difficult for her. What used to be simple, straightforward exercise for you and me, it was a real tough challenge for her, and she needed help from somebody else. In this case, I was the guy who used to help her and take care of her in that sense. And that has always been in my mind since I was a kid. So then somebody from finance department, interestingly, came to me and said, Raja, we need to launch a card for blind people. So when that happened, 2 and 2, I said, yeah, we should actually launch. Why didn't we think of it before? We should absolutely go ahead and launch a card. And when you want to launch a card for blind people, the first thought it occurs to you is we should have Braille on the card so people can feel it and then they know. But when I studied it a little bit, what I discovered is that hardly 10% of the people who are blind know how to read Braille. 90% of the people who are blind do not know how to read Braille. So I said, this is not good. So Braille is not the solution. Then we started looking around, and eventually we came up with a simple solution. It's a system of notches. It's like a small cut on the side of the card. So today, if you visualize a consumer who is sight impaired, when you give them a card, they don't know which is the front of the card, back of the card, top of the card, bottom of the card, right or left. But then there are specific positions where, for example, there is a chip. If they have to insert the chip into the terminal or into ATM machine, how will they do it? How will they orient themselves to the card? And how will they know whether it is a debit card, credit card, or prepaid card? How are they navigating today? So we actually spoke with a lot of people who are sight impaired. We connected with the Royal National Institute for the Blind in the UK, and Visions is another institution here in the United States for blind people and for the needs of blind people and so on. So we actually then came up with this concept of a system of notches. So when you see the notch on the right side of your card, you have held the card in the correct direction. The shape of the card, of the notch, tells you if it is a V, it is a gift card. If it is a C, it is a credit card. If it is a W kind of a thing, it is a debit card. In one simple, small thing, extremely simple, if you were to see the solution. And then we said, this is what we will do. And we got it, tested it. And then we discovered there are interesting challenges. When you put a card in an ATM machine, you don't want the card to get stuck there in the machine. So we had to make sure that by putting these notches, you're not obstructing the flow or the movement of the card. So we had to work with the card manufacturers. We worked with a company called IDEMIA. And we worked also with the ATM manufacturing machines like NCR to make sure that this card is actually adhering to all the what you call specifications of a card that are accepted around the world. It's not in one country or it's not in one use case. So that's what we have recently launched, and we are hoping to launch this in the markets and made available to the consumers in the first quarter of 2022.
It is ingenious. It's excellent because it puts a distinct brand code into a market which didn't have any of those distinct brand codes before. Maybe the Black American Express, because of the weight, because of the different material, but otherwise the regular credit cards, they're all the same. And it's like with chocolate, when you put a triangular large chocolate in your hand in a dark room, you know which brand you're touching, yeah. So now you got the Toblerone of credit cards.
Exactly.
And do you think this could be enlarged to all Mastercards because this is really a distinct differentiator? Is this something, or is the production costs prohibitive in the way that it's much more expensive, or could this be done?
So the costs will drop as the volumes build up.
Yeah, I would.
So it's not going to be a showstopper. The cost itself will not be a showstopper for sure. On the other hand, what we need to figure out very clearly is, one of the thoughts for us is, should it be only an exclusive MasterCard offering, or should we make this standard available to the entire industry? Sometimes, it makes a lot more sense to make it as an industry available to everyone, and don't make it proprietary so every consumer benefits, irrespective of whether they're holding a MasterCard or not. And that's the latter one is what we're actually going to do.
Okay, that's good. That's good thinking.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, last topic. Advertising is dead. That's what you do to provoke your advertising departments. What do you mean by that? Yeah. Advertising in the traditional way is dead. Why? And what is the solution in that respect in the future?
The underlying point there is, it's not that advertising is dead. It is advertising the way we understand is dead. Right? The need for communication doesn't disappear. The need for convincing consumers doesn't disappear. But the modalities will change. The channels will change. The methodologies will change. Now, let me tell you a simple example. If I'm sitting in front of my computer and I start watching some videos, I love Bollywood songs, I love animal videos, I'm seeing every 3 minutes or 5 minutes, there is an interruption. And I have to suffer through that advertisement. I'm not watching that. I'm looking down to see when the skip now button comes. The moment it comes, I press the button and then I'm continuing. Now, there are 2 skip buttons I have to press because there's add 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. It is irritating and annoying beyond belief. Like when I'm listening to a 5-minute song or a 4.5-minute song, I'm interrupted in the middle of the song. Now, a song is meant to be enjoyed in continuity. And if you're interrupted, your whole mood gets destroyed.
And do you wonder why the advertising executives are not the most popular people in the society? I think they rank even beyond like below politicians even. Like they are the least respected profession in UK. That's one study that I recently saw, and that is the reason why they are annoying us. They are disturbing us. They are not letting us live the life that we want to live.
Right. And that's not the way you should do it, right? And we talk about, as marketers, consumer experience should be frictionless, should be seamless, should be delightful. And here, I, as a consumer, was enjoying myself and having a good, delightful experience till you, the marketer, came in and destroyed it for me. You are intruding into my experience. You cannot do it. So what do? I switch over from digital channels that I have advertisement to non-ad channels, which is like Amazon Prime or it is Netflix. Etc. So the point is, some consumers are putting ad blockers. There are 600 million plus ad block users in the world. So those devices you cannot reach. People are going, 200 million subscribers are already there on Netflix alone. They spend most of their time watching videos on Netflix, not your regular channels. Now, that's number 2. Number 3, as a consumer, do you really care about advertisements? I don't. Now, don't keep on, therefore, thrusting it in my face. See, look at me.
And then you hear these arguments. Yeah, but we collect data about you to offer you more relevant advertising. Yeah, it's to create a better advertising experience. It's like I know nobody that enjoys this kind of advertising.
And therefore, we have to rethink. Think like a consumer first. What do you want as a consumer? What kind of an experience you want? And then figure out how you changed your communication and engagement strategies. And it is not traditional advertising. Traditional advertising has some place, but it cannot be your primary modality. Therefore, I keep saying advertising as we know it is dead. You cannot take a 2-dimensional ad and put it in a gaming metaverse, for example. The gamers will throw up on you. Mm-hmm. You have to be very sensitive to what their needs are and how you show up. It's not just putting your traditional ads. Like, we have moved away quite a lot from traditional advertisement budgets to more of experiential marketing, influencer marketing, and so on. There are a lot of methodologies with which you can get there. But the point is, don't be complacent. And in this coming 5th paradigm, there are going to be regulations. There are going to be consumer activism. There is going to be a lot of things that you have to be dealing with. If you say, I'm collecting data so I can give you better ads, they say, I don't want your ads in the first place. And on top of it, you're now collecting my data too. I don't want you to collect my data. That's how consumers feel. Mm-hmm. And if you are collecting data, How are you protecting my data? Are you asking me permission? Are you making it easy for me to understand what you are using this data for? Are you allowing me to delete my data from your databases? What will you do if your database is what you call hacked into? Are my credentials compromised as a consumer? So there are so many concerns which are there from the consumer's point of view. GDPR is already there in Europe, but that's only the beginning. California, CCPA is there here in California, which is the Consumer Protection Act. And
do you think it's going to make a difference? Because I've been watching this development also, and I thought, okay, there's really something happening, but then it's not as much happening as was projected in the beginning. But do you see like the willingness of the industry also to change their ways? Because
the answer is yes.
Yeah.
It is inevitable. Consumer has to win all the time, always. That's a question. That's the point. Like Google has announced that they are going to remove the cookies, that they have pushed it by 2 years, but it's going to happen. Apple has taken the step of saying that they're putting all these notifications, and it comes very promptly. This app is tracking you. Do you want it to be tracked, or do you want you to be tracked? I say, of course, no. And the key thing is, and I support both Apple as well as Google. As a consumer, what they're trying to do is correct. But as a marketer, it's a nightmare for me. Then how am I going to reach the consumers without so it's something which we have to figure. It's not consumers' problem. It is marketers' problem to figure out. Yeah. And there are opportunities really to do that.
And the only way out of that is like when you don't have the individual data, you must understand context much better. You must really be able to identify the right context that your brand is perceived. And when you understand the kind of perception environment, then you can make like quite targeted advertising without actually knowing who is going to be there. If you just know what motivates the people to put themselves into that place and experience what they experience. And I think so there we need more psychological insights and way of measuring the meaning of an environment, the meaning of a context, and that will solve basically without having to gather data like the Stasi about every single individual. Because like in our country, we are super sensitive towards that, because just imagine the amount of data that was collected there that would have been in the hands of the Stasi back then, that was the East German secret police. I think the reunification of Germany wouldn't have happened. I think they could have blocked any development quite quickly. But
what I would say is there is relevance in data. There is power in data. Like, do you say a knife is good or bad? Do you say electricity is good or bad? You can use electricity for good or bad. It's up to you, right? You can put it for an electric chair and kill somebody, or you can use it to give light to people's homes. Data is exactly the same. There is, like, for example, we do something called data philanthropy. You can help people significantly through data philanthropy. So data by itself is not bad. The marketing practices of how you collect data, what you use it for, and how do you disclose to the consumers upfront and you get the appropriate permissions from them to do what you need to do, that is evolving. It has to evolve rapidly. It will happen. It is inevitable, and it's the right thing.
Okay, great. Well, that's a good finish to our to the content part. I would like to turn a little bit to you as a mentor for future marketing generations, and if you would like, with all your experience, you would look back and you meet the young Raja. What would be the 3 top tips that you would give him if he wants to get into branding, marketing, communications, and he wants to be successful and make a difference? What would be the 3 top things?
I would say first is meditate. Meditation, yes, meditation is the biggest productivity tool and the biggest driver of creativity. I'll say meditation is the first one. Number 2, learn. Learn. The world is changing so much. At the time when I was growing up, the world was changing. Now it is changing exponentially faster. So learning is going to be absolutely critical. 3rd, network. You should know how to market yourself credibly. And you should not be a non-marketer when it comes to you, but be a marketer for your company and for your brand. You as an individual are a brand unto yourself. You should stand for something. There should be a brand personality, your values, your characteristics. And you need to communicate those effectively to the other people who make decisions. You need to have your targeting clear. So I would say build your brand, and network. Network is going to be really important. And so these would be my top three.
Fantastic. Meditate, learn, and network. Wonderful. Great. And that leads us to, second to last question. Any resource you would point that young Raja to today, besides quantum marketing, which we're going to link in the show notes? What is a book, for example, that you've gifted often, or that you say, okay, you can also say these two books. Is there any resource you would point that young Raja to?
I would say two things. Number one is Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely. The second one is The Happiness Advantage by Sean Achor. These would be the two books I'll say people, you have to read it.
Great. And the last one, you have the chance to put a screensaver on all the people responsible for brand and marketing in the world for 1 month with one sentence. What would the message be?
I would simply say this. The message would be a force for good, be a force for growth.
Be a force for good, be a force for growth. Excellent. Raja, this was an exciting more than an hour with you, and I feel deeply grateful for your time and also the very valuable insights that you deliver. And as I said, we're going to link to your book, which is excellent, which gives an overview and also clarity of thinking, which is rare and which has been proven by this conversation with you, and which might have to do something that you meditate, because to have clarity of thoughts, you need to cut away the clutter, and meditation is doing exactly that. I think the ape that is on your shoulder and constantly whispers in your ear. So thank you very, very much. And I wish you continued success with MasterCard and on your quest to inspire the marketing world.
Thank you so much, Olaf. Really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope to do it again with you sometime soon.
I'd love to.
Please take care, stay safe, and be well.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Und das war eine weitere Episode von Markenkraft. Vielen Dank, dass Sie dabei waren. Wir hoffen, es hat Ihnen genauso viel Freude gemacht wie uns. Wenn ja, empfehlen Sie uns, Ihren Freunden, Ihren Bekannten, Ihren Kollegen und bewerten Sie uns auf iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Soundcloud, egal wo Sie diesen Podcast hören. Share the love for brands. Machen Sie es gut für sich und die Menschen in Ihrem Leben.